Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. You know, actions have consequences, and unfortunately, these consequences, the Russians are naming them. So it's not like just happened. Oh man, we didn't foresee this one. We know that if I drop these glasses down here, they're going to go this way, not that way. I don't have to even tell you that. But I tell you, hey, if I drop them, I'm going to go down here and maybe they break. That could be a consequence. Or I would tell you, definitely they're going to go down there, which is actually an accurate description of the consequence. In this case, we have Lavrov, the minister of the Russian Federation, who came out of the woodwork and made some statements regarding the transfer of F-16s, multi-purpose or fighter jets. That yesterday Jake Sullivan of the White House, the advisor, Weasel, came and said, well, yes, Ukraine will receive the F-16s. Done deal. Good. First, they're going to be provided by some European countries, blah, 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 and then we'll see. At which Lavrov comes and says, you know what, we consider this a nuclear threat. If there would be any F-16s operating in Ukraine, each time one of the F-16s gets in the air, we consider it a nuclear threat. Now you know what that is? So that's a nice way of saying, well, we're going to be ready. Not to destroy the F-16, but as a nuclear threat. If you remember, Russia has four scenarios under which it will activate or respond with its nuclear arsenal. One of that is this. If there's a nuclear threat, they will activate it. Well, again, we have here I have two articles here, one from Russia Today, one from Ukrainska Pravda, detailing Lavrov's statements. My point is, will these guys get serious about it, or they really want to go that route? Remember, if I drop this, there's only one way they're going to go down. So, if you guys deliver that, it's only one way Russia will respond. That's obvious, clear, and stated. Now, it's obviously this guy's decision to ignore probably Lavrov's statement and warning. So, let's start with a Russian article from Russia Today. And it says that Russia will treat F-16s in Ukraine as nuclear threat. Lavrov. This is July 13, 2023. And the other one comes from Ukrainska Pravda. Russia to consider F-16s transfer to Ukraine as nuclear threat from West. Lavrov. Let's see what he exactly says. Western plans to provide US designed fighter jets to Kiev represent an extremely dangerous development, end quote, Russia's foreign minister believes. Now, when someone says this, and that someone is consistent, regularly consistent in his statements and behavior, would you take note and, pay attention? I'm almost 100% certain that the West will just ignore it and say, yeah, we're just shitting their pants and just talk loud, but they're not going to do anything. Okay, well, this is dangerous because these guys here, they determine our lives. So Moscow can't ignore the nuclear capability of US-designed F-16 fighter jets that may be supplied to Ukraine by the Western backers, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said. So he said, you see, F-16s could be armed with nuclear weapons. So every time one F-16 takes off, as he's going to say later here in the article, we will not just check it out and verify, is it nuclear armed, is it non-nuclear armed, or what's going on. It's like the MiG-31. MiG-31 could be armed with Kinzhal, and Kinzhal can be armed with nuclear warhead. Every time a F-31 takes off from Belarus or from Russia, all these guys are, what's going on here? They're ready. These guys might deliver a nuclear attack. The same would be with F-16s, but the Russians will not, because MiG-31 is not used in active combat like, for instance, let's say a MiG-29 is, or a Sukhoi 35. So you don't see many or any MiG-31 engage in Ukraine war. unless they go up, launch something, and then go back, which is rare, very rare, that I heard of. Now, do you think that F-16s will be used in the same manner once, I don't know, in 3 months? No, they are sent over there with a certain purpose, to blow up the Russian positions. And I don't think it's going to engage the Russian fighter jets, because I don't think they're going to get that close. But we'll find out. Nevertheless, it's not going to be one plane taking off in 3 months. They're going to be every day. So I don't think the Russians will put up with, I mean, as a normal state or normal person who is at war would not react like, oh, it's okay. But again, we'll see. Let's read further here. By continuing to provide more sophisticated arms to Kiev, and I'm quoting, the US and its NATO satellites create the risk of a direct armed confrontation with Russia, and this may lead to catastrophic consequences. End quote. Lavrov warned in his interview with Lenta. So he warns, okay, we'll see if these guys care. I suspect they will not care. The plans to supply F-16s to Kiev is yet another example of an escalatory move by the West, and in itself is, and I'm quoting, an extremely dangerous development, end quote, he stated. And I'm quoting, we have informed the nuclear powers, the US, UK, and France, that Russia can't ignore the ability of these aircraft to carry nuclear weapons, end quote, the foreign minister continued. And I'm quoting again, no assurances by the West will help here. So that means we don't care what you guys say, we will not care. I think it's about time to make your own mind without waiting for any assurances. You were assured there will be no NATO expansion, weren't you? So yeah, with the assurances you... And then what do they say now? When the Russian says, well, you promised that you're not going to 1 inch, you're not going to move east. You know what the Western countries said? The leaders. Do you have any signed document? And the Russia says, okay, all right, no, we don't have any signed document. Okay, well then, bye-bye. So why should these guys just accept the West's assurances? Zero means zero. So whenever you hear someone, hey, I promise this, doesn't work. There's no sign, not signed, not there. So let's read further here. So they spoke with them, and it doesn't really matter, it seems, as of now. The very fact of the appearance of such systems within the Ukrainian armed forces will be considered by us a threat from the West in the nuclear domain. So the fact of the appearance of such systems, just they appear over there, they consider it a nuclear domain. So, and it says here that Jake Sullivan promised the F-16s. They say who's going to do the coalition of F-16s. We have a lot of countries. And that's what's going to be. It's going to be a transfer of F-16s. I think it will be. And we'll see how the Russians will respond. Will they nuke the Ukrainians? According to this guy, if they consider it as a nuclear attack or a threat. Under their doctrine, that involves the use of nuclear weapons. What is the West going to do? I think the West will keep on going that way, that route. They will say, we're going to say, what are they going to do? And again, the Russians will issue warnings or threats, however we want to call them, or the consequences of the actions. And these guys again are going to say, that's a sign of being afraid. Okay, yeah, maybe they are afraid, but on the other hand, if they're afraid, can you do anything about it? You got them right, they can. They have nuclear weapons. So that's the problem. When these guys were bombarding Yugoslavia, Libya, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, you couldn't punch back, you couldn't react in a certain way. Well, these guys can destroy Europe. Why am I saying Europe? Because the Americans are working with them. So you fight over there, and I'm right here, and I push you all. Before the Russians would attack us, they're going to destroy you first. And when they destroy you first, we're going to say, okay, let's talk now. Let's talk. You got them done? All right, now let's talk. Do they want to get to that point? Even though that's that's a better scenario than the whole thing being blown up. Which I don't think the Russians say, okay, we're just going to hit London, Paris, and Berlin. It's dangerous, but these guys are pushing it. And you can say, well, they invaded. Yeah, but they overthrew the government. Yeah, they didn't implement the Minsk agreements. So go to the chronology of events, go back in time and see. All this could have been avoided, but I think the goal was not to be avoided. The goal was to reach here because the goal is Russia, and after Russia, the goal is China. All this got to go. Why? Because they stand in the big scheme of dominance. If you don't see it that way, well, I don't know. Maybe you give me about $28,000 today, and I will give it to you back tomorrow with a 3,000% interest, okay? And I'll meet you tomorrow. I promise. I'm giving you assurances. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.